So before we go over the homework questions for Chapter 6 and Chapter 7, I just want to briefly review a couple of the concepts. So Chapter 6 homework's focusing on artificial price supports, while Chapter 7 is focusing on the consumer surplus idea, consumer and producer surplus ideas. So quick review using the PowerPoint lecture notes. Remember, artificial price supports are prices that are set by the government. And there's two kinds. There's a price ceiling and then there's a price floor. A price ceiling, I know I'm reading it, but I'm going to read it, is an upper limit on a price that's imposed by a government. So in essence, when a price ceiling is put in place, the government is saying, you know what, we don't like the equilibrium price that's being determined in the market, so we're going to make sure that the price can't exceed some amount. And generally speaking, when they impose price ceilings, it will be below the equilibrium price level. There's no point in imposing a price ceiling that is above an equilibrium price, because if we were to do that, the price would just go right back to equilibrium, because price ceiling is where a price can't go above some amount, but it can go below. So another piece of terminology with this to remember is that when you see the word a binding price ceiling, what that means is it's the price ceiling that has been set below the equilibrium level. Or if you see a binding price floor, which is a minimum limit on prices, so the government has basically said, you know what, the price can't go below some amount. The only time a price floor is a problem is when it's set above equilibrium. So if we say we have a binding price floor, that means the price floor imposed by the government entity is actually above the equilibrium. So here we have equilibrium, supply or demand, and without any kind of interference whatsoever, we would always end up in our equilibrium. We've gone over this in class. So we'd be at a price of $7.50 and an overall quantity equilibrium, which remember is quantity supply and quantity demanded, at that $7.50 price would be 15. So we wouldn't have any problems here. But if the government comes along and says, look, that $7.50 is just too high of a price, they would go ahead and impose a price ceiling. So again, if a price ceiling is set below the equilibrium level, that means it would be binding and it's going to cause issues. So this is what happens at this $5, so let's just pretend that the ceiling the government said is 5. So they're saying, you know what, instead of the price being $7.50, the government says it really should only be 5. So that's fine. They go ahead, they impose that binding price ceiling, but here's a problem. At $5, we go over to our supply curve and we see quantity supply is 10, so the firms are willing to put out 10 units, but at this nice lower price of $5, according to our demand curve, the quantity demanded would be 20. So we have a problem here. We have quantity demanded for 20 and we have quantity supply of 10. So this difference between the two, between 20 and 10, is a $10 unit problem. And that is known as a shortage, because you've got people are willing and able to purchase more than what firms are willing and able to put out. So we call that a shortage in the market. So again, this is a binding price ceiling because the price that's being set by the government is causing a problem in the economy, in this case a shortage. So a price floor is where, again, the government comes in and says, all right, we're going to impose a price floor. And in that case, it means where a price cannot go below a certain amount. So this is a good example of this is not a binding price floor, because again, it's $7.50. The quantity supply is 15 at $7.50. Quantity demanded is 15. So with no intervention, we'd be at this nice point of 15 units at $7.50 and says, you know what, we're going to impose a price floor. So go back, remember, price floor means a price cannot go below a certain amount. So it can't go below $5, but a price floor can always go above $5. So in this case, when the government imposes this $5 and it's now a price floor, not a price ceiling, but a price floor, momentarily we have, quantity demanded is 20, and at 5, quantity supply is 10. So there's this difference of 10 units as in the previous question. But because this is a price floor, this price is allowed, it's allowed to go up, because price floors are minimum price levels, so it can always be above. So that is exactly what will happen. At $5, we'll have, people willing and able to buy more than what firms are willing and able to put out, and so the market will fix itself. It will say, okay, we're going to raise the price, and they'll be allowed to raise the price because a price floor lets the price go up. So price will go up, and as price goes up, we'll move along the supply curve, we'll move along the demand curve, back to equilibrium of $7.50 and an overall equilibrium quantity of 15. So in this case, this would not be a binding price floor because it's not causing problems in the economy. Okay, this is an example, this picture is an example of a binding price floor because again, price floor, price can't go below a certain amount. So in this case, if we say $10 is our price floor, the price can go higher than 10, but it cannot go below 10. So as with the other pictures, the equilibrium will be $7.50, and we would, I changed the quantity here, our overall quantity would be 30. So when the government comes in and says, you know what, $7.50 is not enough, it's too low of a price. So this most common example of price floors are minimum wages. So the government says, you know what, we need people to be paid at least $10 an hour. So in this case, because the price floor is the minimum price, meaning it can't go below, but it can always go up, this is going to be a binding price floor example because we've got a problem. At this $10, the quantity supply is way over here at 40. And at 10, the quantity demanded for this at that price is only 20. So we end up with this gap of 20 units, the difference between 40 and 20. And that is known as a surplus. Now we have too much. So again, binding price floors and ceilings are where they've been set either above or below equilibrium, and it's the place at which it's causing issues. So you want to be sure that you have that straight in your mind before you do any of these homeworks. All right, so let's have a quick look at a couple of the questions. So as a reminder, you're from the ASU, my ASU homepage, you'll click on the title. It will take us into Canvas, and then we're going to click on the Macroeconomics Fall 2018, which is then going to take us to a new screen, and then you click on Load It in a new window, and that will take us into MindTap. So we're still in Section 1, so we'll click Section 1, and this is going to be our Chapter 6 homework. So we'll click on Chapter 6, and we're going to scroll down until we get to the homework. And the homework that is for points is the one that says counts towards grades. So we'll click on problems and applications, and it will pull up a couple questions. So I don't think you'll need too much help on these questions, but let's pull it up. So the first question. So the question reads, suppose the demand for classical music is downward sloping and supply is upward sloping. So that's just a reminder that supply and demand are in the normal, positions that we've been studying. And then it says, lovers of classical music persuade Congress to impose a price ceiling of $40 per concert ticket. All right, so That's great. So basically what this is saying is that Congress or the government is now imposing a price ceiling. So first thing you want to think about is, what's a price ceiling? Well, a price ceiling is a price that can't go above a certain amount. So this $40 per concert ticket, saying the price can't go above $40. And then you're going to read this true false. So it says, if the equilibrium price of tickets were $40. So before I even read anything more, I would suggest you draw a supply and demand of this market. So you've been told where the supply and demand curves intersect, the equilibrium price is 40. So the market on its own is going to go to a price of $40. So I would draw that. And then it says a price ceiling of $40 has been imposed. Okay, so that's where the equilibrium is. And then it's asking you, will cause fewer people to attend classical music concerts than if there was no price control. So what this question is basically asking you is this imposition of a price ceiling doing anything in this market? And I think if you draw this, you should easily be able to answer that question. Okay, the next one, our next question. All right, so in this one, you've got a picture that you're to refer to. So it says the following graph, so it's this graph down here, shows the market for cheese. And once again, it says, suppose the government decides to impose a price floor of $3 per pound in the cheese market. Okay, so again, you got to pay attention to what kind of artificial price support you're dealing with. So this is a price floor. So price floors are prices that cannot go below a certain amount, but they're able to go above. So if you look at this picture that you're given, here's supply, here's demand, your equilibrium price without any kind of intervention is going to be $5. And then this question is saying that a price floor, again, a price floor is a price that cannot go below a certain amount, has been set down here at 3. So the question is this a binding, this $3, is that binding or is it not binding? Again, I think you should be able to answer that. The next part says, when a price floor of $3 per pound of cheese, comma, there will be, and you got to click on what these things are saying. What is it going to do? Is it going to cause a shortage, a surplus, neither a surplus nor a shortage? So again, the key is your equilibrium price is 5. You got a price floor that's been set at 3, which the price floor says it can't go below, but it can always go up. With all of that in mind, you should be able to answer these questions. And if you have trouble, be sure to just contact me. And that's it for Chapter 6.